And we are live. Welcome to another edition of Bald&Balding. Today we are honored to have another self-published science fiction contest finalist, Will Long. Welcome to the show, Will. How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. I'm all right. How you guys doing? Thanks.
Could be better, could be worse. I'm glad we got the time settled.
Right. Mike sent me a message at like 10 minutes to 6 saying, "Hey, we're on at 6 tonight." It's like, well, that's not the tweet I sent out.
Yeah. So, I actually sent out a tweet saying it was 6, and I was like, I should probably delete that right now. So, yeah, but we're here. So tell us about your book, your debut book that made it to the finals of the science.
That's crazy. You write one book and make it to the finals. What's up with that?
Tell us all about it. Here, I'll even obscure my face for it. Yeah.
Okay. Children of the Black is a science fiction novel built around the far future. The idea was I wanted to separate us from Earth and tell a story about family and human beings going through things that seem very common to us, but in a setting that's completely unrecognizable. And so I decided I wanted to do that. That's the book is really just a tale of a man learning to be a father and a young girl learning to be a daughter. Neither of them have any real family, and they kind of find each other through circumstances of this book and end up getting caught in massive conspiracies, I guess, to a degree. And there are a lot of. I'm not very good at doing this, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, it's all right. We're here to help you. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, it's basically just a mercenary, Claude De Silva, and finds a psionic little girl, and they try to make a life of it on this harsh, kind of barren world called Minerva Prime. And during that process, they take on odd jobs for people in the slums of this city, and one of those jobs leads to secrets about their history and the way that they came together, and what that means for them individually and collectively as well, and for the rest of humanity. It might just turn out to be a much bigger deal over time.
So you're not really, if I get what you're saying right, your themes are pretty low-lying themes, like neighborhood kind of themes, but it does have an impact that goes much larger scale than that. So
the core theme here is really about family and what that means, right? Especially in the terms of, like, I have a little girl myself, so that's part of that went into the book, of how to raise a daughter, not knowing what you're doing, and feeling kind of out of place in the world. In this particular arena, you've got skills, but they don't really help you here. And then just how to trust the people around you to know what they're doing, right? Especially when it's a child and other people like that. Trust has been the biggest issue of the book is about trust, especially for where Claude is concerned. For Vision, she's a little more naive is part of the term, but like enthusiastically so, and that can be problematic in a harsher environment. So,
did you say that she's psionic?
Yes.
So how is it writing that kind of power for a character when it's a power that doesn't actually exist to be able to I mean, all the research that you're doing for it obviously is based on other fiction.
Yeah. Well, I went to the places. I mean, the biggest place I went to think about like psionics and to see how it's done. There have been over 50 years of X-Men comic books, and psionic characters are very prominent in those books, in those comics, especially with Xavier and Jean Grey. And so one of the things I wanted to do was to find a way to make psionics feel like a real thing. How does it work? How does it function? What are the limitations? How does that? What's this power? How can it also be a weakness, right? If you could forever just look inside somebody's head before they could respond to a question, like, would you ever get confused about what they thought about but didn't say, or what they felt but didn't act upon, or like that type of thing? And how would that interact with the situation? In terms of like the pros of it, I dealt with. I imagined it was a lot like, especially for her being so young and not really. She's growing up with it, but not understanding. There have been in the book. There are no child psionics. Right? They are adults are turned into psionics over time. Um, but this is the first time that anyone's ever come across a child who is as young as she is. When we first pick her up in the book, or in the bulk of the book, she's 11 years old. So there's never been a psionic that could do that. So they don't know what to expect or how powerful she will be, what that means. And so when I thought about how her dealing with that power, I thought the best way to do it would be to talk about like the limitation, what it feels like, especially when you don't have control of whose head you're in or how many people are pushing in on you, right? How many people's thoughts and emotions are pushing in on you, especially if a situation goes wrong, right? They say there's an explosion or a comet crashes or whatever. These things aren't. I'm just giving random examples. They're not necessarily in the book, but like what that does to a group of people around you and their emotional states and how that pushes in on you if you don't have the ability to kind of wall them out, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought the best thing I could think of was water. So I use a lot of water motif with that. The weight of it, the pressure of it being down so far, pushing in on you all the time, and that kind of thing. And then the beauty and grace of it when being a creature that lives, if that is basically an aquatic creature. Let's say it that way. She is to the mental arena what a fish is to water in certain areas. Now, if you get too low, things can get problematic. But up close, up top, she's beautiful. She's like a dolphin or swimming in the sea. Like it's just gorgeous to look at, and she can do amazing things. But if she gets down too low, or the storm kicks in, or whatever, then it can be a problem. So it's both a great ability that like really enhances her and also limits her and can she's Icarus basically. I guess it's a good
So, does this actually take place on Earth in the future, or is it somewhere else out there in the galaxy?
No, it takes place far out in the galaxy. This is a significant distance after Earth has lost a conflict with an alien race.
Okay.
So we have all been, everyone there has been taken from Earth and moved out towards. Been with me for a long time.
This is the kind of riveting insight we get here.
But yeah, we are far out from that. So like, we are tens of thousands of years away from a middle passage of humanity has been taken. Right, this alien race came to Earth, conquered it, took humanity off, and we have lived under them, enslaved under them for a long time, but they have died out now, and they have been died out for say about 10,000 years at this point. And so human beings have rebuilt and formed new nations, their worlds, new alliances, trade agreements, all kinds of things, building most of their tech, especially space travel tech, around the alien technology that was left behind. So they have no memory of Earth, no recollection of it. There are some things, because of the way that they were taken, that have been that have found their way over there, but they're similarly to, they don't know exactly what everything is. So they'll find a piece of something. They'll find a piece of a poster, a Superman poster, and he doesn't know what Superman is, but it's the S-Man because they know the symbol, the flying man. He sees it several different times, but this one time they found a relic of it, and it's Christopher Reeve's Superman. It's the first time he's ever seen one that wasn't like drawn. It was like a person. So like, was he real? Could he really do that? Like the kind of thing. That's where they are in their society. They don't, you know.
So your first book, other than being a finalist, which is tremendous, is your first book, and it's over 600 pages. I'm going to just go out on a very sturdy limb and say that you are a big fan of sci-fi, because that is a huge undertaking to put that out as your first piece of work.
Yeah, my mother turned me on to science fiction at a very, very young age. I remember sitting with her watching Doctor Who and Star Trek marathons. You know, we used to watch Doctor Who marathons on PBS when they used to air the older ones before the Eckhart reboot. No, I don't know if it's a reboot or whatever. Anyway, before they relaunched it. So, but yeah, she's that and watching Lynch's Dune and Star Trek and Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and stuff like that. Enemy Mine and The Thing and crazy stuff like that. So I've been into sci-fi for a very long time.
So you probably have an opinion then.
Oh no.
Mike knows where this is going. You probably have an opinion on a ranking of the best Star Treks. Or the worst.
My Star Trek, you talking about like movies, the series, or
let's go with the series.
Okay. Well, my favorite of the series is Deep Space Nine. I think Deep Space Nine is the best. But again, it's like they had so much time to work it out. Like, how many seasons of The Next Generation did they have to get that right when they launched the new series, set in that same time frame? But I'm there with that one. I think the OG next, then TNG, then I say then Enterprise, then Voyager. I wasn't a big fan of Voyager.
So Voyager's last, then. That's what we're really getting at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Outstanding. If you go back a few episodes in this YouTube channel, we've had this conversation before, and everybody gets on me about my Janeway's horrible take. But
I won't touch it. I have my reasons why I don't like the show that much, and that's just it. I'll just leave it there
because it sucks.
So how long have you been writing? As I try to reel us back in.
Okay, I've been writing. I remember. Well, I discovered in I think about fourth grade. About fourth grade, that I discovered that teachers, like, I hate school, right? I hated it, and the teachers would bother you if you like did stupid stuff, like if you like talked to people or you passed notes or you drew pictures or whatever. Teachers would come and mess with you, right? They were like, "Hey, you need to be paying attention," or whatever, right? But if you had a notebook and you were writing words in your notebook, teachers left you alone. They were like, "Oh, he must be taking notes. Look at him; he's so studious." It wasn't true, but like, you know, I'm just in there telling myself stories. That's to keep my eyes open. That's really what I was doing. And I mean, everywhere except like English class and science class, really. But like, and some social studies too. Mr. Parker was great when I got to him. But like everything else, like I spent a lot of time doing that. I was a troublemaker in school, and they used to, throw me in school suspension. And of course, I could have my notebook. They put you in a cubicle, and you're just there for however long. You got your notebook and your pencil, and you go into town. You're writing whole universes of things that didn't exist.
You're going to put me in a quiet place by myself with a pencil and pen? Yeah,
exactly.
Thanks.
Right.
Our favorite Canadian has made it here, so welcome, Tim.
Hello, Tim.
So, the hell was I going to ask? Yeah, here we go. God dang it! Go ahead, Mike. It'll come back to me.
Okay,
This happens a lot too.
We're going to ask a silly question then.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a fun one. If you had to write a romance novel set on a spaceship, What would the most absurd obstacle be for the lovebirds to overcome?
Well,
Can't bring you anywhere.
it seems quite interesting because, like, you've got a enclosed environment there. The first thing I would want to do would be shut down the ship, or at least parts of it, making people have to deal with each other up close and personal, like without, take a science fiction thing and throw it back, like, say, to the 1800 scenario. Say, like, now we've got a bunch of people who have been able to, like, live in the cleanliest of environments, and now for however long they now have to cope with each other in questionable hygiene situations, and dealing with each other like that. Because if you can fall in love with somebody and they don't smell very good, then you are doing a great thing. There, it seems insanely difficult to do, especially if the ship is shutting down one system at a time, and that could be like filtration systems start shutting down and stuff like that. It could be super interesting, I think, to me personally.
Could you imagine what would happen if you had an inquisitive AI that kept asking questions?
Oh yeah. But
God person.
I'm not sure that would be a problem with the lovebirds themselves. I think it would be a problem like externally. I think they probably would. I mean, I don't know how you write a scene where people just sit together in silence, just in peace, after having answered so many damn questions. But
And El Montague is out of his meeting. So are you aware of this?
I am, as far as I know, I'm not on it. I didn't know I know about Tatiana Obey in her Sister Samurai book. She's written a lot of books. I don't know, but I haven't. It's on my list. I haven't gotten to it yet. But I didn't know she was making a list of black sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, as a finalist, I mean,
Yeah,
I'll get you on that list. Hey, I remember my question.
Woohoo!
Okay.
The senior moment's over.
So you were saying earlier before we came on that you went down a filmmaking path.
Yeah.
As kind of I don't know if it's a passion project or something you like to do. How did working on that the film manuscript
Screenplay
to begin with screenplay? How did that kind of help you or make this project come together? And what can one learn from writing a screenplay that will help or hinder writing a novel?
Oh, okay. So, in truth, Children of the Black used to be a story I wrote in notebooks called Silver that I adapted into a screenplay that I then adapted again into a novel. So the story was like putting it in a screenplay form really helps streamline your story in terms of knowing what the main characters are doing, because the let's see, you just have limited time with the screenplay, right? So like they want you to have, well, in general, they want you to be between 90 and 120 pages, and that's 120 is really on the upside of it. So they really just want you to be really at 90 pages to write a screenplay for a story. So like this story was done, but it was like 148 pages or something like that as a screenplay. So it was already a big story to start. And then it really helped me to get this, to know exactly what my set pieces were and where we were going, like which big pieces we're hitting, what our character beats were for especially Claude and for Vision and for Miranda, who's our villain or antagonist, I won't say villain, and what those character relationships and those beats were. And I had those things. The screenplay helped me nail those things down really solidly because I didn't have a whole lot of secondary character work to kind of work around with it, right? Because like you had characters who were like named as Pirate A in the screenplay are now like Ash, right? So they have names and they have backstories and stuff in the novel, which is something I wanted to do. I I remember listening. I had Heath Ledger's Joker in my head when I was planning out the novel, and it was like, our organization is small, but there's a lot of room for aggressive expansion, and so that's kind of what I did with the novel, was to kind of expand it a little bit and flesh out the universe and the characters, especially side characters, that can help give the world a little bit more texture and a lot more like stick-to-itiveness in terms of like how it functions and that you feel like it's a real place. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, I mean, they're two very different skill sets, aren't they?
Yes, yes.
And do you think it was easier going from the screenplay to the novel, or do you think it'd be easier to go the other way? Easy being a relative term.
Well, I mean, it depends on how good you are or how comfortable you are killing your darlings.
Oh, we're all very comfortable with that. We're fantasy writers. We do that shit all the time.
Yeah. I don't mean your characters. I mean your plot lines.
All right. Yeah,
if you have side character plot lines that tie into your main character plot lines, there are two characters that I have here that kind of mirror Claude and Miranda in their younger years, and they work here as kind of a parallel to where our current characters are, so you can kind of see through their relationship and the contrast between the two, what was lost in, there's a time jump in the book, and and things happen in that time jump, and relationships are changed by that 6 year time period. And so we get to kind of see, in my mind, I get to cheat, right? I get to have, hey, here's what they used to be like to a degree, and this is what they are like now, having 6 years of division and different priorities and stuff like that. And I would, I'm not sure which version is better. Hard to say, right? So they have drastically different endings. Drastically different events happen towards the end of the books, because I have the time to stretch it out a little bit. And I keep kicking my camera stand. But
dog or something.
No, it's just it's but like I think that it's probably easier to start with a screenplay and go up, because the screenplay was just like a more fleshed out outline, really, and then you just keep adding to it. It's like let's say you write the outline, that's the skeleton, your screenplay is like your muscle structure, and then you can put your you put your skin on it, and you got your hair and all that stuff, and that's what your novel is. So I think it's easier to go from screenplay to novel than it is to go backwards.
Yeah. And you also said that you, after you'd done your screenplay for this, you started writing a sequel to this before you got some good advice.
Yes. I was working. I thought about the idea of what I wanted to do for a sequel to. Well, the original story was called Silver. I didn't think it worked for the book because the idea of a title Silver just. In my head, I thought like, well, you're gonna put that on the book. It's gonna look like, what's it gonna be? A dude standing there, his shirt half off under the moonlight, right? Like, so I was like, nah, let's change the title. But yeah, I worked on it. Like I said, I had a stroke. I came out of work, and I didn't really rudderless to a degree. I was, I've been working my whole life basically, and so I had to come out of work. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I was lost for a long time. And I said, okay, well, I want to tell a story. I want to tell a story I want to, and that I've wanted to tell for a long time, but just never sat down and done. And so I was telling the second story in this series. But I was telling it as prose, right? Because I was like, well, I'm not going to make it because, one of the big things about the screenplay when I submitted it was it's too expensive, right? It would cost too much money to make. It doesn't have a name, nobody's attached to it, and it won't, it's too expensive. So I was like, well, I'm just going to write the sequel, and I'm going to write it however I want to, and I'm going to get whatever I want out of it, and I'm not going to think about budget and time frame or anything like that. And so I was like, I'll write it as a novel. And then my wife was like, "Hey, you can't write a novel, a sequel novel to a screenplay that didn't get produced. That doesn't work, right?" So
Good luck with that.
right. Yeah, she's right. She just like she was right. She was right telling me, "Hey, you should write prose." She told me that for many years. And now I'm listening, and I should have listened a long time ago, but whatever. And so, but yeah, so like we're working on the sequel. Well, the sequel's it's in edit now, so I'm out with my editor, and we're back and forth with it, or who will be. She just got back to me today about it. She just got to it. So I'm hoping to get it out this year. The Hound of Gravewar is the name.
Nice.
When did the first book come out?
The first book was 2022.
Okay.
22.
So it takes some time then to write something that's that many pages.
Yes, I have told myself after finishing Gravewar that I'm taking a year to write something else, something not set in space, something on Earth where I can describe grass as the grass is green. I can use Earth descriptions. I can say it's 10 feet tall. I can do that, and
Yes.
So, and I was like, I wanted to do that, and I made a promise to my wife that I would. There was a story that she really liked of mine that I never finished. I thought I was going to finish it as a novel, and I'll be working on that. So, and then I'll also be plotting out book 3 for that. So during that time frame. So I don't know when book 3 will be out. I'm hoping 2026. Seems weird to say, but you know.
So how many years did it take for your overnight success?
I started writing this when I was in community college. Well, there were still 2 zeros in the year when I was there. And so I wrote that. So in order to writing that and then the screenplay version and then to 2022 and then here, I don't know, it's like 20, close to it. So that's just this story. That's not everything.
Okay, so EL is off his conference call, so now he can inundate us with questions. So that makes our job easier.
Yeah, plus
pick whichever one you want to answer.
Okay. I write alone. I write along with a lot of people who lend me their ears to kind of help me, like, find out what's stupid. I guess that's the term, or what's not working. I write alone. I have really little communication with other authors up until now. I mean, Nick Snake, who's also been in the contest, and he's been really helpful with me, and there've been a couple of others. I first published Children of the Black under an indie label called Private Dragon, and we parted ways, and I had to republish it myself, self-published. And then some of the authors there have been really helpful with me. Really helpful. I do swap stories with them sometimes. I'm really careful about swapping my stories with people because my book is so big, in comparison to others. Right? It's kind of not fair.
And your cover. I'll hide my face again.
All right. The cover art is done by a place called Get Covers. It's a subsidiary of Meeble Art. They're a Ukrainian firm who does cover art for reasonable prices. Meeble Art is quite, well, I won't say quite expensive. It's cheap for a cover depending on where you go, right? But I got that cover from Get Covers for $35. I paid $35 for it. And I was blown away by it. So I tipped them for that significantly. And the only thing I don't like, they're a good place to get your covers from. They don't use AI. They have real designers that work on them. They're out of Ukraine if you want to help those guys out. But like it was a really eye-opening experience. It kind of just came together. It looks. I was worried that it might look too much like a movie poster, but I love it.
That'd be terrible. It looks like a movie poster.
Yeah. Why would you ever want that?
Well, I just the movies. I was skeptical. This is my first novel. I didn't know, like, there's so much I didn't know when I was publishing children, and I just didn't. I didn't want to stumble into a faux pas on the divide between movies and books, because there's, depending on who the people are, who you're talking to, there's a very significant difference between the two things. And, I mean, there are, the medium wise, they're entirely different, but the audiences tend to be a little different as well. Like, for every happy accident well, it's not an accident. They work real hard for that. But for every doom, there's a Jupiter ascending. So, so you try to help, try not to,
Now, you are a finalist with, I mean, who you're a finalist with, right? There's only, looks like 6 of you?
Yeah, there's only 6 of us,
yeah.
Okay. And we've had Wick Welker on.
Yes.
And Dave Dobson, we've had him on here. Have we had the other ones yet, Mike?
No, we have not. Dave Dobson was for SPSFC, though. We're going to have him on, I think, next week
for this
to talk about his sci-fi book.
Yeah, Kenya, right? What Kenya's is.
Tim Hawk and Thrill Switch. We've had him on too, I think.
No, he's coming.
All right. I'm just making shit up now then.
So I asked EL because he's very well connected in the community. So he's already got ideas for who else you should approach. And I can send you contact information for everybody he's mentioning.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
But I do have a question for you, as I am going to enter the science fiction competition for next year.
Okay.
What advice would you give for someone who is writing their first sci-fi novel and is dumb enough to put it in this competition?
Go for it. Like, my thing is, like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, for me, I think that, like, any exposure is good exposure, right? So if you've got your novel, right, and I've always been an advocate of, like, just write what you want and put it out there, and then at least it will always have at least one fan. It will always at least have you that will be a diehard fan of it, and that's always, and sometimes that's all you need, really. So, like, but yeah, this contest, I say get in early, because if it's like the fantasy competition, I don't know how long this contest has before it becomes like that, right? Where people just don't get in. So I say, like, be ready beforehand. Know when, if you're gonna be ready for the launch, if you're gonna have your book ready, then have it ready, and be prepared, like, the minute they go live, to put your stuff in.
Okay, so Herman wants to know if the last 2 finalists will be in a cage match, and he already has a slogan for it.
2 writers into one book, please.
I mean, you and Wick have an advantage because your books are quite thick. They can be used as weapons.
That's right.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So
you changed your cover on this, yeah?
Yes.
Amazon's got the old cover.
That's the one with the little girl on it? Well, I mean, they both have a little girl on it, but, like, this one's like, it's like a full, like,
yeah.
I don't have a copy of it on the shelf out here. I have a copy in my room. They're almost out of print. Well, they're out of print. They are out of print. Like, I think I have, I mean, unless somebody's holding copies, I've got the last three copies of that original cover here at the house with me. I kind of bought them up.
For anybody who hasn't seen this, I'm looking at Goodreads right now. You've got 23 reviews on Goodreads, nothing below a 4. And you got 26 ratings. All of them are 5s and 4s. That's pretty impressive.
I've been lucky. I will say
You don't write 600 pages and get lucky, Will.
I won't say lucky. I'll say I've been fortunate. I'll just say that. The people who have found my book have loved it, and that it's found the right people. That's what I'll say. I don't know. I mean, I'm not big. Like, I don't have a whole lot of people like buying the book and reading the book and stuff like that. I'm still kind of small. I celebrate breaking five units sold in a month, but like I didn't write it, to sell a million copies. I wrote it because I love it, and for it to find people who would enjoy it as much as I did, enjoy reading it as much as I did.
And if there's a million of them, great, right?
Yeah. If it gets huge, then I'm totally okay with that. I just like
you got the screenplay ready to go.
Yeah, true. Yep, it's ready. But yeah, I haven't. I guess I love it. I wrote it for the sake of writing. So
yeah. Good
Herman
answer.
will be a guest on our show coming up. So
what?
Herman will be a guest on our show coming up. So we'll have to ask him how close he is to 1 million sales.
Why don't you roll the dice there, Mike?
All right.
Okay. Okay, 16. Okay, let's hope this isn't a stupid one. Let's see.
I love the stupid ones.
What piece of writing advice have you received that you totally ignored?
Oh, well, I think the biggest one that I've heard that I ignore is write drunk, edit sober.
That just sounds like editing would be a horrible experience.
Well, I think that's a Hemingway quote, but it makes sense. But yeah, like I can't write. I think the reason why it takes so long to write one of these books is that I am in film. I did several things. I wrote screenplays. I read script supervision, and then I edited. And I'm always editing. The only thing is, like, as an editor, I was frustrated by the lack of footage. Sometimes I didn't have the shots that I wanted or whatever to bring the image together the way I wanted to. But with a novel, I can just create the words, right? Like, so I'm always like, I treat it like driving a car, like getting a car out of a ditch. Sometimes you have to go backwards to get the momentum to go forward, and I end up going back to a previous chapter, and reading through it, and then I have to change, and then I'm in momentum all the way through past where I was stuck at, or past the last place I stopped, and keep going, and then just constantly just back and forth, rocking through the book, which hopefully helps me line everything up.
Yeah, I mean, I think editing kind of as you go, actually, I mean, a lot of people don't like it, right? A lot of people will absolutely swear that that's a horrible thing to do. But I find it kind of keeps me finding my place. If I go back and, finish writing for the night, next day, go back, read a couple of the last couple of chapters, then pick it up and, probably edit some stuff along the way in those couple of chapters. But it also makes the process at the end a lot less tedious if you've kind of tidied it up as you've gone,
Yeah. The only downside is that, like, that last run, and if you read the book, you'll know when you get there that there is a run to the end of the book, and it's not rushed; it's just momentum. And then you have to go back through there because I did all that, like a big chunk of that. The 3 parts of the book, of the last part, I think I did it in a week, like the whole thing, like all the way out to the finish of the book. And then, like, you don't need that momentum, but then you don't kind of get that smoothing, rounding motion on all the chapters. They don't. It's weird. It's going back to it is like, because you go back to the beginning, you've been to the beginning so many times, and then you cleaned it up so many times that when you get to the end, you're like, worried that like, okay, so I have been spending the last 18 months working on these opening chapters, and I haven't done that to these ending chapters. Are they going to be as good as these opening chapters? How many more times I need to go over, like that type of thing. So I overthink, if you haven't noticed. So so I overthink that stuff a lot. Like, okay, so do I need to just, and then just trying to set myself, like stopping myself from setting arbitrary numbers of how many times to go back over the last chapter or the epilogues, and make those, hey, do these work right? Are these perfect? And, that type of thing. But it's easier to do at the beginning of the book. I think it's harder to do at the end because the more stuff you change down, I guess everything flows downstream. Right? It's like it's kind of
it's
on top. Go ahead.
To just beat the hell out of a metaphor. It's kind of like running a race, right? When you can see the end in sight, you're not worried as much about your form, right? You're just trying to get across the line, and that's all that matters at that point. All the other work that you've done just kind of goes out the window as you're focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
And you just can't wait to get there so you can collapse and, lose all control of bodily functions and whatever else. And nobody gives a damn.
Yeah. But I always worry that I'm messing something up. I guess I have imposter syndrome pretty bad. So like, I'm constantly concerned that it's not working, or that this character is not quite coming across right, or that I wanted this and I didn't quite get it, or, that type of thing. And it's always, I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to spoil the book for people. But it's
yeah, the imposter syndrome thing. I mean, we've all read stuff, even produced traditionally, that was just hot garbage, right? I mean, we've all seen that. Just things that should have never seen the light of day. And even in the New York Times or any reputable news source now, you can hardly read a 500-word piece that doesn't have a typo in it, right? Something that just wouldn't have happened on something that's short 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But we've kind of learned to get past that. But I mean, you're in a position now where with your debut novel, you're getting great reviews out of it. You're one of 6 from how many people that entered?
Like 260 or something?
221. Sorry,
221. Yeah, I think you probably nailed that. Yeah. Right, and Yale said, imposter syndrome is proof you're asking the right questions. If you didn't feel at least a little bit skeptical about what you were doing, you are either unbelievably arrogant or unbelievably just blind to your own shortcomings.
Yeah.
So I think having that is probably proof that you're on the right track.
I hope so.
So how many other stories have you written but not necessarily published? You don't have to run down an exact number, but just an idea.
Well, okay, so in recent history, I've written screenplays for 4, not including this one. I intend to novelize all my screenplays. If they work. If they don't work,
right,
I'll chuck them. But like, and I have boxes and boxes and bags full of notebooks from stories that I've written before. So I say probably 15, 20.
How hard is it to go back to something like that, though, instead of doing the next shiny thing?
Right now it's pretty simple. Okay, so I'm eager to get the series, to close this series out, and I'm just eager to see how it. Well, I'm so eager to see how it ends. I know how it is, but like to see how it comes together, and how it looks how it comes together on the page, as much as anyone who has read the book and is like hopefully looking for the next 3, I guess. But I have new ideas that I really like, but I'm trying to hold myself back. I've been kind of enticed by this SCP Foundation idea that they have on the internet. I don't know if you guys know about that.
No.
The SCP Foundation is a wiki written by a bunch of people about a government organization that deals with anomalies and monsters in the real world. But it's very kind of bureaucratic, so you end up with reports and how to procedures for how to deal with them and things like that. And it's all very weird because it's wholesale sourced from the internet. So like anybody can write any SCP, anybody can use anything. There is no canon. It's all just what it is. Nobody owns anything in the SCP Foundation. If you put it in there, it belongs to everybody, and everybody can use it. And so you end up with these constantly compounding. What about I'm thinking of the creepypasta type stuff, right? Like like stuff like Slender Man and things like that are similar to this SCP Foundation idea. And then it spun off of this direction they call new weird, the genre they call new weird. And it's very kind of weird and just kind of off-putting in some ways. It can be anything from a comedy. Some of the SCPs are about a snail who is like a British aristocrat, like an adventurer, like an Alan Quatermain thing, but he's kind of like a snail. It's called, and he goes on adventure. And the other ones are like, hey, there is a statue, a concrete statue that if you turn your back on it, it will break your neck and kill you. Right? It's like if you close your eyes, like if you're in his presence, or right, or there's a guy there that if you see an image of him, a video, a picture, anything, he will hunt you down and kill you, no matter where you are. Even if, like, one of the stories is the guy went to the moon and he killed him on the moon. So, like, it's just that kind of weird, like, stuff that kind of has no real explanation. And I've been thinking about stuff like that, and doing something very, very strange and kind of Cronenbergian in the way that you do it. Is kind of unsettling and creepy and horror design. I've been thinking about that, but I've got stuff. I don't want to open another door, at least not a big door. I don't want to open a big door to something that's like a new universe of things to talk about without closing this one first. I don't want to. There are some famous people out there. I don't want to emulate their completion record.
Mr. Martin.
Well, I wasn't going to call him by name. He seems like a decent guy.
Oh, we call him by name all the time, actually. There are several topics we get off to on this show. You cleared up one of them very nicely earlier with your very neat and correct summation of what started the worst. We also talk a little Harry Potter and who was the real hero of Harry Potter.
Don't answer. Just don't answer.
Severus Snape.
Yeah. Oh, this is the best day ever.
I mean, nothing that was done without Severus Snape. He is the guy.
Yeah. Mike, when you take vacation, Will's coming on to fill in for you.
Yeah, and then you will never have me back.
This is fantastic. I've been put upon for months now. You did, Tim. He actually has. And what's the other thing? So yeah, we talk about George R.R. Martin never finishing his books, and then there's
Jar Jar Binks.
There's a little Star Wars thing. Yeah.
Oh, I sat down for a long time. I was disappointed with episode 1, to say the least. And I sat down with a notebook for a long time and rewrote episode 1. What I would do if I was to do it again. And I actually wrote like half the screenplay again. Anakin's 13 years old, and Jar Jar Binks is the disgraced outcast. The Gungans, instead of playing them for laughs, they are actually a warrior group, like Jar Jar says they are. And he is outcast. and then he earns his way back by helping the Naboo and all this stuff deal with the droid army. And so like he's like a once a returning, like the prodigal son returns. He's that guy. Instead of being this goofball like thing, he's kind of like a warrior who refused to fight in Sun Tzu battle and got exiled, right, by his father. And so his father thought he was weak. And so he's dealing with all this stuff. And it turns out that he's not weak. And he leads the Gungan army against the droids and all that stuff. And most of it's exactly the same. It's just slight tweaks here and there. Like Anakin
being more of a John Wick character as opposed to a Don Knotts character.
We're just dead.
What?
We're just dead.
Or that would have been fine too.
Well, yeah, but like I think that like I think he's not a bad character. The idea that like they haven't touched on it in Star Wars at all. That this idea that like two races on a planet, one believes themselves superior to the other because the other is less human looking or human acting, the society is less understood, right? And taking Jar Jar Binks and doing that thing where like, because I hate, there's an idea in science fiction that I hate. It is the alien ass pet, right? I feel that way. I mean, people might come for me on this one. I feel that's the way that Chewbacca is treated with Han Solo. Like Han Solo believes that Chewbacca is like an equal or whatever, right? An equal, but like in the way that he is presented in the show, in the actual movies, he is a little bit more like a pet because we don't understand what he's saying, right? And it's okay that we don't understand what he's saying, but like the thing that really sets me off the hardest was the Bumblebee Transformer. And I'm like, this guy is a warrior from another planet fighting a war that has lasted for hundreds of years, and you're gonna sit here and be like, oh, hide like a car and pretend you're like no. So like I'm like I like that idea. I deal with that in my book a little bit. So non-human creature that is a person, right? With all the complexity and flaws that come along with that.
To be fair, George did have to sell, plushies and stuff.
I know. I get that, right? But like
here you go, Yale.
They sell toys to this guy too.
Yeah.
And this guy is a person. Right?
Did you see they have one of those that's got to be like 2 feet long or something, and you activate it by voice command, and it actually makes itself. Yeah, you don't have one of those up there. You should get one of those.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, but if I can get a hold of one now, definitely. That's my original Gen 1 Optimus from 86, 87. So, Jar Jar was assistant.
And EL was happy he got to see Optimus Prime.
Yeah, that's my my thing is like that there are two different ways to do it. There's the Optimus Prime way of this is a person. I mean, I guess there's an argument that's like he's really just King Arthur in robot form. Right? He's just the noble warrior king, right? Sure. But then but he is also not human, and they don't really write stories around Optimus because he's kind of hard to relate to, I guess there's that. So but I still think that there's a way to do Chewbacca that makes him feel like a different person, like a person from a different nation, a different society, a different.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're going with that. I don't know that I've ever seen Chewbacca. I've never felt that way about Chewbacca, though, because even though you couldn't understand what he was saying, you always knew what he meant. Right? Yeah. And I don't think anybody ever talked down to him, really, in a patronizing way.
No, I mean, something when Leia calls him a walking carpet, and
well, I mean,
yeah, but that's Leia. She talks down to real human people. It's not a big deal. So yeah, but I just felt that that like we never got anything that like Chewbacca wanted, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like there was never we were never like going on Chewbacca's mission. We're never like Chewie had the subplot wasn't Han's, it was Chewie. Right. It was never, and I was hoping we would get some of that in like the sequel trilogy, but we got so many other things. And
so do you read fantasy at all, Will?
A little bit, yeah.
So we had a guest on probably back in February, E.C. Greaves. He's a Spiffbo finalist. And the one thing he said that still sticks with me is that he will never, ever write a story that has humans in it. Because if you have humans, then everyone will root for the human no matter what you say or do. And so therefore, he's like, I will never, ever, everything. He created a whole world where there are no humans and just different civilizations. He's like, that way you will judge them fairly because you don't have a rooting interest. And he's actually writing a pirate novel now where all the pirates are rats. So they're pirates. So, the dad joke is just write themselves.
Yeah.
The upshot is the ships are very small. So
I would almost take that challenge. That you couldn't write write a story about a race that's not with humans in it, right? Where people didn't side with the human.
Oh, I think you very easily do that because humans can be pretty despicable. I think it's very easy, probably easier than anything else, to make an unlikable human.
Yeah, I think definitely. And it depends on what the other race is. If the other race is Cthulhu's, then like probably not. But like, but I agree that they did do Chewbacca right in episode 3. I will say that that was a comment that was up on the screen.
Is that the one with the Ewoks?
No, episode 3 is it when Yoda went there and the Wookiees were fighting off the Separatists.
Oh, see, there's only three Star Wars movies for me.
Well, I appreciate the prequels for what they were trying to do.
Make $1 billion?
Well, yeah, that too. But like, the idea of expanding the universe in film, right? Because like Lucas, for as much as I love the original trilogy, and they're amazing films. And for me, Return of the Jedi is my favorite. Not the best, but my favorite, right? So but I think that that the expansion of the universe was left to comic books and novels post the films in the original trilogy. And I think that one of the things that Lucas wanted to do was to expand the universe on film. So like now we go see Coruscant, which we didn't see in the original trilogy. So we have some idea of how the governmental systems work, things like that. And maybe he bogged himself down with that a little bit. If so, then I'm worried. But otherwise, for my sequel, but dealing with I appreciate that this much, because the prequel universe is much larger than the original trilogy universe in terms of like what you see on screen, what we deal with, what we're hearing about, the understanding of how the planets work and how the connection, how they're connected, right? And it feels, I would say that the prequels deserve to be novels, whereas they're not. There will be better novels than they are books, than they are movies. I would say that.
That's not a stretch. Yeah.
Huh?
So that's not a stretch. It's just like episode 7 is episode 4. It's the same movie with a gender swapped lead.
And that really, 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 really good Millennium Falcon sketch scene from Jakku. That's like I'll give them the credit that they deserve. That sequence is amazing. And all the technical, like Lucas said, the technical folks did their job. Everybody, like the writers, yeah.
Riddle me this then. And this is we'll stop our Star Wars conversation here because this is pointless.
Okay.
If Luke wanted to run away and hide, right, and just go live off green milk he was sucking out of whatever the hell that thing was. Why did he leave a map and make it so damn difficult to find him?
Oh, dude, you're not gonna have me defend their plot points on this.
Okay,
I'm not saying like I'm not a fan. Like I'm looking at like just looking at the design work, the aesthetics, the sound design, the action sequences. Most action sequences are pretty good. I mean, you get to like the last like episode 9, like everything's bad in that movie. But at least some of the things like me and my friends are choreography hounds, and like, well, we didn't like the sequel trilogy for that reason. But like, like watching people's weapons disappear in the Imperial throne room fight in Last Jedi is kind of heartbreaking, coming off of what we were looking at in the Phantom Menace and stuff. And like, but the like, look, there is a way to make Luke Skywalker like leave the universe, but I don't think they did it right. And I don't think that there's any universe where he abandons his friends and his family because he had a momentary fear that his nephew, who was having a bad dream, is evil, while his father, who had helped destroy all the Jedi, was not. Like, I don't get that. That will never square with me, right?
But I mean, this is the same universe, though, in which Anakin Skywalker went from a love-sucked little pup to a homicidal, raging, child-killing maniac in about 3 minutes.
Well, I mean, have you seen the deleted scene?
God, no.
Okay. He left the best stuff on the cutting room floor. The formation of the rebellion, all the different angles there. There's I played before the movie came out for Revenge of the Sith. I played the video game for Revenge of the Sith, and it was based on earlier screenplay versions than what they shot, right? Because they had to make the game so much further in advance. They had to start building it early enough, so they had to give them a script early because they weren't giving them script revisions to the video game company. And the destruction, so the confrontation with Palpatine doesn't end with him shocking Mace Windu out the window. Anakin tries to stop Mace Windu, and they end up in a fight. And Mace Windu in that fight is like, I never trusted you. You were never supposed to be part of the Jedi, blah, 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 right? We only kept you along because to keep an eye on him and all this other stuff, right? These are things that Mace Windu was saying in this fight. And I'm thinking, if that's in an earlier version of the screenplay where the Jedi never trusted Anakin, he was never supposed to be trained, they never forgot that, right? And they always kind of, kept him at arm's reach and alienated him to a degree. Then, it's not just Padme got sick. Padme was going to die, and it was also that these people have always been they've always been holding me down, right? And there's actual legitimacy to it instead of just a teenager being like, I should be more powerful. They're jealous of me. It's not that, right? So there's actually a legitimate thing behind that, and I thought that was an angle that they definitely should have played to start with when they weren't going to train him. I thought it'd be awesome if they just didn't, if they didn't back out of it in episode 1 and say, he will not be training. Obi-Wan is like, well, I promised Qui-Gon I'd do it, so I'm going to go do it. So they go and train on Alderaan. And then the Clone Wars break out, and then they need all the help they can get. So they call us in for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin comes in, and they're all looking at him ugh, right? This whole time. And he's been trained with Obi-Wan in the ideals of what the Jedi are supposed to be, not what they have become in the New Republic. And then just seeing that and having Palpatine twisted, they're not what they're supposed to be, are they? They're supposed to do this, they're not doing that. They're supposed to do that, they're not doing this. And then having that in Anakin's ears, just it's so much better than just my girl. Than this person's gonna die. But I think that George,
there, Mike.
Say what?
I think we touched a nerve there on Will.
Well, I mean, that's okay. If you're gonna have a character turn evil and do horrible things from being this good person, then you really, really, really have to put that work in.
Yeah, and they did.
Did either of you read the Thrawn novels by Timothy Zahn? that were supposed to be 7, 8, and 9. And then they said, oh, wait, the Emperor's dead in these because he died in the movies. We can't have that. And, all these interesting plot points we're just going to get rid of and recycle characters everyone knows and loves instead.
And yet somehow Palpatine returned.
Well, the books are actually by Timothy Zahn. I read those, 20 years ago. But they were actually very good. Thrawn was the new general who takes over the evil empire because, again, Palpatine actually dies and stays dead in his books. So
don't they clone?
There's no Clone Wars. It's all
no.
It's new.
I thought they cloned. They were cloning that they were bringing in. Maybe it's a different book series where they had cloned Luke Skywalker.
I don't know. I read the Timothy Zahn like 20 years ago, and that's probably the last I did for Star Wars.
All right. So, I read a few Star Wars books, but I never read the Zahn trilogy. But because I didn't really need an episode 7, 8, 9. I think the story closes. Star Wars is the story of Anakin Skywalker. It's over when he dies, and I think that's personally for me. That seems like it wasn't the case with the original trilogy, but like taking the prequels into consideration, the character who has I have liked Luke Skywalker for a long time. I never loved Luke Skywalker because I didn't think that his character arc was particularly robust. He was good and he stayed good, and he never really kind of teetered. Really, I mean, aside from Cave and Dagobah, he never really kind of. There wasn't a moment where you thought he wasn't gonna,
Right.
So
is that his whiny bitch face? Yoda, I can't do it.
I mean, when he fights the premonition of Vader, and it's him and when he cuts his head off, it's Luke's face inside. That's kind of the idea that hey, if you're not careful, you could turn. And I think that everything that happened in terms of Luke Skywalker turning to the dark side happens in Mark Hamill's face, and I guess that's fine, right? It's that the closest he ever comes to the dark side is when he cuts his father's hand off in the throne room, right, of the Death Star. And so he kind of doesn't. He sees the mechanical hand of his father that mirrors his own mechanical hand, and he throws his lightsaber down and says, I'm not going to do it. And I guess that it only takes that kind of decision. But I would have thought that if the seduction of the dark side is so powerful, then it needs to be kind of bigger, right? Than just you are coming after my sister, so I'm gonna stop. So I will stop you, which is not an ignoble trait, right? Even then, he's still the good guy, right? Because we wouldn't back a hero who would just Zen master while this villain is talking about finding his sister and submitting her or bending her to the will of the Emperor. We wouldn't have got behind that to begin with. So it's not necessarily that he takes a negative spin in that direction. I'm sorry, I'm just going off. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. That's what this whole show is about. 5 episodes of people just going off. That's all good. Anyway, anybody following along with us, you can find Will on X on WJ Long the Third. Follow along there. He is one of 6 authors to make it to the finals of the self-published science fiction contest. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Space Boat. We'll call it Space Boat. And good luck to you with your debut novel, The Finalist. That's pretty awesome.
Have you read the other finalist novels?
I have not. I've been trying not to be honest. At least not until the contest is over. I will read them once the contest is over, but I didn't want to read anybody right now. Right now I'm reading Nick Snape's book, The Scouring, I think is the title of the book. He's just released or is releasing soon. And I'm really looking forward to it. He's a good friend of mine so far. And I've been reading the books, The Ships of Britannia series by I've got them. By E.M. Kula. I'm not sure. I'm probably butchering her name. And that's serious. I'm reading a bunch of indie books right now. So, but no, I have not actually sat down. I tend not to read in the genre I'm writing in while I'm writing.
Right.
I don't want to borrow ideas. I don't want to, that type of thing. So, I don't want to be influenced by more than natural, right? So, like, so right now I'm reading mostly fantasy, and since I'm in edit on Gravor, I'm reading Nick's book. He was grateful. He was, nice enough to help me out and to trade. So we're doing that.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Well, when your next book gets ready to come out, give us a jingle around release time.
Oh, we'll do.
We'll get you out on here again, and you can talk about that, and we can talk a little bit more about how Severus Snape was the hero all along.
Well, he totally was. Oh, talk about an art.
Right.
Character.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
All right, Mike.
Okay, so now I'm going to hit end stream, and it'll take like a random 4 seconds for it ends. So we all just wave awkwardly while we wait for the